Hi, I'm Dr. Cher, and today I actually want to speak to you about one of the big reasons why women in particular, but also applies to men, over 40, where they find they're carrying that weight, particularly in around the belly area, that belly fat. What I want to do is explain to you why this fat can really interfere with your body's ability to actually lose weight. It's a bit of a catch-22, right? You put on weight, it's accumulating around the belly area, trying to lose weight, and you're just finding that you're struggling. It's not like when you're in your 20s where you might put on a bit of weight and you can kind of shed it just by cutting calories, exercising some more, that type of thing. This is a very different experience. And if you're somebody who's struggling, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, yes, I get it. So what I'm going to explain is, think of, like, in our body, we have different organs that produce hormones. Hormones, think of those as like little messengers. They go through our system. They help our body stay in balance. They're like communication chemicals. And they just help keep our body functioning well. So, for example, the thyroid gland is going to produce the thyroid hormone. You're going to have the ovaries produce your estrogens and other types of hormones. Your adrenal glands produce cortisol. And the reason I'm explaining this is because obviously these organs are very important. The hormones, the balance is extremely important. When everything's running smoothly, the body has the ability, not just about weight, but just to function well. Now what happens is, as we accumulate fat, and it's in the belly area, they actually call it VAT, V-A-T, not F-A-T, meaning visceral adipose tissue. It's different than fat in other areas. This tissue, this VAT type of fat, the belly fat, is actually as though you're growing another gland that is producing hormones. It is a very active tissue. It's not just sitting there kind of bothering you because of how it looks, maybe how you feel, but it actually produces a lot of hormones. In fact, like well over 10 hormones. So imagine, it's like you're growing another organ. And obviously that organ's not meant to be there. So obviously these hormones are probably not helping our bodies. It's actually interfering. So now the analogy I like to use, and I find this really helps people understand this concept, I say, belly fat, it's like bad Wi-Fi. When you have bad Wi-Fi in your house, nothing works properly, right? As we've maybe all experienced over this time with COVID, and people trying to work from home, and their Wi-Fi isn't strong enough, or it's a wonky signal, nothing works. Likewise, your belly fat is like Wi-Fi, it's interfering. So the normal hormone communication that would happen in your body to keep your body healthy, to help you manage your weight, everything's gone awry. It's complete chaos. And so for this reason, when you're trying to lose weight, you need to think of it differently. It is not just an external thing, meaning, oh, if I exercise more, that's doing something outside your body. Oh, if I just change my eating habits, then I'll lose weight. Under normal circumstances where you don't have an excess of this extra gland that you've kind of, created, this organ, then yes, it could work. But now you've got this interference. So those normal signals that should trigger weight loss aren't working. And it affects things like your appetite hormones. It affects your behaviors because of the effect on the brain chemistry. So, it's totally working against you. It's going to make you hungrier. It's going to make it more difficult for you to manage your behaviors. It affects your insulin, which affects your blood sugar. So even without changing your eating habits, your blood sugar levels could be higher. It affects your liver. So that contributes to your body, holding on to fat. It affects inflammation. Anyways, the list goes on and on. I'm not going to go through it all, and all those, the effect on the body. The main point here, I just want you to imagine that if you were to grow an extra organ in your body, to recognize that this is obviously going to have an impact. Therefore, to lose weight, you need to be able to have an approach that's going to deal with this imbalance. Because the sooner you can get that fat down and reduce it, your body's going to come into balance. So you can use methods for weight loss that could result in maybe some muscle loss, maybe other types of fat, but it's really not targeting that belly fat, then even though you may on the scale have lost, if you haven't really attacked that belly fat, you still have this imbalance. The result is health. You still could have health issues, but also you're going to put weight back on. So you really need to make sure the approach you're using is to target that fat. I know certainly with the approach I use, based on some of the protocols, that's a whole thing. That's what I focus on. That's what I specialize in, is using an approach that's going to attack that fat. You know, in my office, when people that I would see in person, I'm measuring it all the time. I would do a body composition test to make sure that's what we were doing. I will give you a little tip on how to track this yourself so you can have an idea, because the scale is not telling you exactly what's happening there, right? That's just one number. It's not telling you the big picture. You can use body composition type machines, but a lot of scales, a lot of things really aren't measuring it accurately. And so it may not be giving you the most correct information. The best way, old school and simple, the best way to get an idea of if you're targeting that fat, if you're trying to lose weight, almost more so than just the number on the scale, which probably will drop anyways, but the other important factor is to measure your waist and measure your hips. This will tell you, are you getting rid of that fat, the method you're using? Because if your scale is not moving, or your scale is dropping a little bit, but you're not getting any changes in that central area, then you're not getting at the root problem, right? You're not getting at this visceral adipose tissue, the belly fat, that is creating the bad Wi-Fi in your body. So in terms of measuring, what you want to do is measure at the waist area and then measure at the hip area. And the ratio for women, for health reasons and to make sure you're balanced in terms of getting that fat down, you generally, the one number is you want your waist to be 35 inches or less. But as well, obviously women are different sizes in terms of just structurally, right? You could have quite a tall woman who's like 5'10", you know, more curvy. I mean, her body shape is going to be, and her waist could be very different compared to somebody who's like extremely petite, a little, 5-foot person, very finely built. So one number is the waist measurement, 35 inches or less. But the way to kind of know what's appropriate for you is also measuring hips. Generally the hips, you're going to measure at the widest point. And what you want to look at is the waist to hip ratio. So your waist to hip ratio, when you take your waist measurement, and you take your hip measurement, divide the hip into the waist, and it should be equal to or less than 0.8. Obviously that means, right, your waist is going to be a little smaller than your hips. So look at those two measurements and track those. When you're trying to lose weight, that's what you want to track. For men, same idea, but their numbers are different. For men, you want to have your waist as being 40 inches or less, and your waist to hip ratio should be 1-to-1. They're more straight. So those are numbers. So you have some numbers, you have some things that you can use to track. Because again, if you're not getting at that central fat, that's telling you the method you're using isn't right. And ultimately, it's really not, from a health perspective, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve, and you're not getting rid of that fat that's really creating this chaos in your body hormonally. So you have to think of weight and weight gain as it's a hormonal thing, which is not the same as saying, oh, it's because of my hormones I'm putting on weight. It's the weight and the added belly fat is creating a hormonal imbalance. And that's why people struggle losing weight. That's why they have struggled trying to keep the weight off, once they've lost it, if they haven't lost and targeted that fat. So I find typically, when I used a particular protocol, when I ran into my weight challenges, that's where I saw the big gain was in the waist area. In 6 weeks, I lost, I think it was like 3.5 inches. And I think I lost 3 inches off the hip. So that was in 6 weeks. So typically I'll see that for women, 3.5 to 5 inches in a 6-week period of time. So it's really targeting, and I really track that closely. Don't just rely on the weight on the scale. Anyways, so hopefully that enlightens you, why maybe you're having challenges. You get the significance of the belly fat, and also how it can be that fat is contributing to more you're putting on fat. So you've really got to target that and use a method that's going to get at that belly fat. Okay, so get out your tape measures, have some fun, and start tracking, and make sure that's that you're losing inches, not just pounds on the scale. Take care.